Hey guys, it's Jessica Wilken, registered massage therapist from the London Squash Club. I'm just here today to do two videos, one beginner, one intermediate, for lower limb mobility for chronic squash injuries. So this is the intermediate video. So good kind of rule of thumb is if you're in a seated position, in a chair ideally, I'll just do this quickly on the mat, and you're having a lot of limitations just bringing your leg over the opposing leg at a nice 90-degree angle, then maybe beginner is better for you. This one's, if you are feeling comfortable in this range, you feel like you can kind of bend, flex, move at the back, then intermediate is probably a good starting point for you. So that being said, if you are working with a healthcare practitioner right now on certain injuries that are acute, or you have a specific treatment plan, maybe stick to your treatment plan instead of doing this video. That being said, also if you have any kind of artificial hips, knees, arthritis, this might not be for you. This is kind of for general mobility to keep the body happy and healthy on court. Okay, so what you need for this is ideally if you have a yoga mat, that's great. If not, find a nice squishy bath towel. We're just going to kind of put it in the center of where we're working just to kind of help support our knees. But yeah, if you do have a yoga mat, that's great. Okay, so we're just going to kind of come to sitting on our knees, kind of hip width apart, middle of our mat. Just kind of seeing how that is to start. Just kind of seeing how limited the hips are. If you're having a lot of trouble with this already, maybe go back to beginner. But yeah, definitely put the towel underneath just to give your knees a little bit of added support. Okay, so just kind of seeing how we are here. And we're just going to slowly start to fold forward, extending the arms out onto the mat. Coming down, kind of pushing the shoulders out, opening up everything, and slowly making our way down to the mat. Hopefully you can relax down into this, eventually pressing your head to the mat. Okay, this doesn't have to be really static. You can kind of move through a lot of these stretches and mobility work just to kind of see where your body's at. And then just take a couple nice deep breaths. So throughout this whole thing, good rule of thumb is if you have to hold your breath, then the stretch is too much. You need to back out, reset, or just kind of back off the stretch a little bit. You should be able to take nice, relaxed breaths. Okay, so one last breath here. We're slowly going to walk our right hand over to the left side. And just take a nice deep breath, feeling that side bend into the right side body there. Couple breaths here. And just working our way back to neutral. And then left arm goes over right, extending out, feeling that down the left side body. I definitely feel it more in my right side, racket side. A lot more limitations there. So really taking a deep breath, expanding that rib cage. Okay, coming back to neutral. Okay, so we're just going to swing around to seated. And I'm just going to throw this towel out. So we're just going to kind of spread the hips out a little bit. Your right knee is going to come down to your left heel. And then your left is going to come down to your right. So this is just a warm-up. It's just going to alternate from left to right. So just warming up the hip joint, working through internal and external rotation. See what the limitations are from left to right again. So I feel a lot more pinching into my right side, my racket side. So just making sure that the hip is properly warmed up. Okay. Last one, and then when we're flopping over to the left side, we're gonna bring our right knee to the left heel. You're just gonna grow nice and tall into the spine, and then you wanna take a good solid twist away from the legs. Don't torque yourself all the way over, but just a nice, long, good twist. And then we're just gonna kind of fold into this a little bit. Come nice and deep. Just kind of working yourself down to the ground in almost like a wave kind of motion. So just kind of working with your range. Doesn't have to be as deep as this if it feels really kind of tender in the low back or anything, or in the hips. This is just a warm-up. Okay, just walking yourself back to neutral, and then going over to that right side. Growing tall in the spine again, taking that twist, and then coming down and folding over. Coming as deep as is comfortable for you. This is just about getting your back to articulate with your hips and warming everything up. So don't get overly competitive with it. Good. And we're just going to come back to neutral. And then we're going to swing around. You can take your towel again for your knees. Just kind of place it down. Coming back to another tabletop position. So you just really want to make sure that you're nice and strong in the core. So we're just going to kind of take a second to fire up the core, just because we're going to be doing a lot of twisting, bending. So we want to make sure we're properly supported as we stretch out the back. So just kind of making sure you're nice and strong, and the hips to the back nice and straight. You're going to send the right arm out and then the left leg. So we're just kind of waking up that core because we're going to do a lot of twisting. Just kind of holding here. Just work with your balance a little bit. If you have to reset, that's fine. Just make sure those hips are nice and even. Back is straight. And lower back down. Okay, just kind of resetting your hips if you need to, resetting that back. Left arm goes out, and right leg goes out. And just working with the wobbles. Might find that one side's a little bit more stable than the other. Again, squaring up those hips. Hold it for a couple more breaths. And back down. Okay, so from here, we're just going to go into downward dog. Maybe just watch me for a second if you've never done downward dog. So you're just going to tuck the toes underneath you. You're going to fire up, sit bones to the sky. Arms are strong, pushed out. Neck is supported and relaxed. Okay, and just take a second here. If you have to bend at the knees, that's okay. Just kind of work with your limitations. Okay, so just, again, finding some movement. Just pumping those feet down. You feel all that pull into the calves, into the hamstrings. This is a great, great stretch for the calves, ankle mobility, all the fascia in the back of the legs. So just holding here for a sec. Okay. We're just going to come up to nice plank. And I'm going to go onto my right hand for a side plank. I'm going to bring my left leg up to kind of mid-body. And then I'm just going to slowly drop my hip down. So feel free to kind of adjust yourself with this one. Staying really tall in the spine, but feeling like you're almost between two walls. You want to be nice and straight. So if you feel like you need to kind of bring your hips forward Roll your shoulder back. You might feel a little bit more stretch in the side body. And down into the IT band. Couple deep breaths. Feel that rib cage and that side body expand. Okay, finding your way back into a plank. And then firing back up into down dog. So again, sit bones up high, heels pedal towards the floor, or you can take a nice knee bend. It's a little too extreme into the hamstrings. And forward, forward, forward onto the plank. Going to the left side. Right leg comes over to mid-body. And I'm just going to lower down onto that hip. Again, being really nice and tall on that spine. Pushing that shoulder back. Just making sure you're not folding forward. You're between two walls, nice and straight. Playing with where the hips are to kind of find that deeper stretch. Last couple breaths here. And finding your way back to a plank. And firing back up to down dog. Last pedal out of the feet. Pushing out strong, neck is nice and neutral. Nice deep breath. This is a good stretch down the back of the legs. This one is excellent for squash players. And slowly coming up and walking yourself to your hands. Going tall. And we're just gonna raise our arms to the sky. So see how this feels. Remember, you don't want to bend at your back, just to push your range back. You want to stay tight in the core. Okay, so with this, I feel a lot more limitations into my right side. So from here, just going to take left hand, grabs right wrist, and we're just going to find a side bend. So I know you're looking at me being like, I thought this was lower limb stuff, but just trust me, it's all connected. Nice deep breath into that side body. And relax to neutral. I just kind of like to bring my arms down, little blood flow coming back, and come back up. Again, staying nice and tight in that core, not flaring the ribs, not pushing back. Nice and tight, seeing what the limitations in the shoulders are. Okay. Right hand grabs left, and nice side bend into the left. Couple deep breaths. Make sure you're not collapsing in this as well too, that your elbows being brought up to the sky, shoulders rounding out. And relax. That blood flow back down into the arms. Okay, so we're going to go down into a hamstring stretch. Obviously, work within your range. If you're not touching the floor, that's okay. Just don't push it too hard. So we're just going to slowly come down and trace your hands along the fronts of your legs. And just kind of come to hang a little bit. So you can find a little bit of movement here, swaying. If you feel you need a little bit more stability, you can open up the hip or the legs a little bit. So just seeing where your range is, don't push it. So we're going to bring our hands to our knees, support our back, push out. So kind of pushing out long into the spine. Take a nice deep breath. And fold forward again. Just seeing where you're at. Again, you don't have to be touching the floor. You might be still like up here, not much after that kind of halfway lift. That's okay. It's just seeing where you're at. And coming back up. Last halfway bend, halfway lift, push out, growing tall in that spine. And another fold on. Okay, just go nice and relaxed with this. Keep breathing. Okay, so you're going to take a nice deep bend in the knees, and you're just going to grab hold of your big toes, big toe. And this is more of a back stretch. So you're just going to kind of pull your back away from your hands, and you should feel it into your mid-back thoracic spine area. Nice deep breath. Go slow with this. If your back is really tight, this might be a little intense. So just go back to nice kind of relaxed forward bend if this is too intense. And release. Slowly, 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 just kind of peel yourself up. Okay, so we're going to go into a deep squat stretch. So you're just going to take your towel kind of in a half fold, and we're just going to kind of roll it up nice and thick. So it's kind of a little bit more than hip width apart. And put it down on your mat, kind of towards the back of you. And you're going to come to stand on it, heels on it, and then toes are forward off onto the mat. So you're on a bit of an incline, almost like you're in high heels. Okay, so you're going to come out, nice 45-degree angle in your feet. So the point of this is to come down into a deep, deep squat. So if you have a lot of impingements in your hip, this might not be for you. So go really slow. We'll do a lot of variations. So just kind of coming down, bending at the knees. Support yourself with your fingertips, coming down with the hands. And then slowly just kind of lower the bum. See where your range is. Okay? So you might just be working through that because it might be really stiff. Okay? So just kind of coming through, seeing where it is, popping out, staying relaxed. Okay? If you're feeling comfortable with this, then slowly with supporting your hands, just kind of come down and see where your kind of resting position is. So this is a position that we've lost touch with in the Western world quite a bit. So a lot of other cultures use this position to work off of the floor, to cook, to eat, to do other things. So this can be great if you have a lot of, kind of IBS issues or whatnot. Mastering this, it's not going to hurt. So with this, if you're feeling okay, just settle into this for a second. Pushing your elbows into your knees to kind of push out a little bit more. Growing tall in the spine. Settle down. Again, you can find small movements here to kind of work yourself into it. If you find it's a little too intense, bring your hands down, pop yourself out of it. Just give yourself a little bit of support. Okay? This is a great hip opener, but it can be very intense. So go slow. A couple more breaths here. Okay, I'm going to bring my fingertips down, roll forward to give myself a little bit of support, and then slowly lift up. Good. Let's kind of just shake out from that for a second. Just going to kind of roll my towel back out. Okay, middle of the mat again. And I'm going to come down onto my knees. And just going to come forward onto the right leg. And we're looking for a forward lunge. So you want to just make sure that your right ankle and knee are in line as you come forward. So we're going to just take a quick couple breaths here. And then we're going to alternate into a half split. So just extending out long, just make sure you're not collapsing into your knee. And you're going to find a forward fold. Again, staying nice and lifted in the back, forward fold. If you're up here, that's okay. But just kind of slowly see what kind of range you have. Couple breaths here. Now from here, I'm going to transition into pigeon. So if you've never done pigeon before, maybe just watch for a second. If it's too much, if you think that's never going to happen for you, alternate on the breaths between the forward lunge and the half split while the rest of us do pigeon. Okay? So I'm just going to come up again, swing the leg back. I like to find a little bit of a plank again just to reset my body. Bring the right knee up to the hands and then settle down. Okay? So if this is too much, again, just back out, go to that half split and the forward lunge, alternating, and just work from there. The rest of us, we're going to grow tall in the spine, and you're just going to come to settle down into pigeon. So if you have a yoga block at home or a stack of books and you want to work on this, putting a stack just kind of underneath the right glute, just to kind of give yourself a little bit of support so you can stay kind of settled into this is great. A couple deep breaths, seeing if you can relax the pelvis a little bit more into the floor. And getting ready to fold ourselves out of it, just supporting with your arms. Again, firing up that core, tucking under the toes. And then I like to reset into plank and then come back to the knees to tabletop position. Left leg's going to come forward into our lunge. So again, just making sure that the ankle and the knee are in line with each other. Couple breaths here. And coming down to a half split. Again, if you have to readjust the heel a little bit, making sure that the hips are nice and in line. And back is lifted, back is straight. Coming down for forward fold. Again, if you're up here, that's okay. Just kind of listen to the range of your hamstrings on this one. Just on the breaths, seeing if you can get a little bit more range comfortably. Last breath. Again, if you're more comfortable doing this instead of pigeon, stay here, just alternating from this to the half split to work on opening up the hips. The rest of us, come forward, frame the foot. I like to flank back to reset, and then bringing the left up to the hands. And again, just finding that settled position, trying to bring that pelvis down to the floor. And once comfortable, lift it in the spine, folding forward a bit. So obviously left to right, I always feel pigeon so much more on my right side. A lot more limitations, pinching. This is why this posture is so good for squash players. It does, internal rotation. It does a glute stretch. It stretches the hamstrings. It stretches the hip flexors. If you find you don't have a lot of time for stretching, then you only have your choice of one. This is the one. Okay, getting ready to peel ourselves out of this. Just give yourself a little bit of support. Coming back to a plank. And just kind of coming back down. We're just going to roll onto our hip. Take the towel out. And we're going to come to some adductor stretches. So be really careful with this one. Typically, this is the area that if you've ever had any groin pulls, that this is kind of isolating into those muscle groups. So just be really careful. So what we're going to do is I'm actually going to start with my left because my right is a lot tighter and a lot more troublesome. So extending my left leg out. Okay, I just like to keep that foot kind of switched on. So really flexed throughout the foot, just kind of activated. Okay, so just seeing how that feels to start with, okay, and seeing what your range is. So again, I'm going to repeat this all the time, but just staying really tall in the spine. You don't want to be collapsing forward. You can kind of see how that makes a big difference. Okay, so just staying really nice and lifted. We're slowly going to just put our foot out to a nice 45-degree angle. And then we're just going to kind of come to find a forward fold. Okay, so just kind of listening to your body, seeing what your range is. And then if you're feeling pretty good with that, it's not too trying, you're going to extend tall in the back, reach up with the right arm, and just come to fold over to that side. Nice deep breaths. Again, your range might not be this. It might be better. It might be worse. It's okay. Just listen to your body. And coming back out. And we're going to switch legs. So this is my right side, my racket side. It's quite a bit stickier. So I can really feel it into that kind of the bony processes into the hips. So that attachment site. So I'm just really going to kind of give myself a lot of leeway with this. Okay, so just kind of finding my range, kind of playing with the positioning of my hips to get them to open up a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to keep the foot flexed on, drop it out to a nice 45-degree angle. Growing tall in the spine, and going to kind of find my baby forward fold on this side because it's a lot more limited. So we all have those kind of weak spots, and this is from years of soccer, and squash doesn't help. So this is something that I always have to work on. Okay, and growing tall in the spine again, reaching up left side, bending over to that right. Nice deep breaths. Really feel it into that side body. And coming out to neutral. Okay, so from here we're just going to quickly fire our core back up. So I'm just going to swing around, sitting long on the mat, and I'm just going to kind of fire up the hip flexors. So I'm just staying really switched on in the feet, sitting up tall, this nice kind of like L shape, and just seeing how that feels. So a lot of us have really tight hip flexors from sitting all day at a desk, driving, so they're shortened, but a lot of the times they're weak. So just kind of seeing how this feels. I'm going to take my hands kind of halfway down in between my knees and my hips. And we're just slowly going to see how our hip flexor range is. So the key with this is that you want to stay really lifted in the spine. So you just want to raise one leg, go back down, raise the other. See how that is. See if you can keep that back really straight as you do this. Lift, and lift. Just kind of making note if there's any kind of irritation into the hip flexors. Just slowly alternating. Trying to stay really lifted in the spine. It's pretty tough. Last one. And relax. And just kind of coming up. We're slowly going to lower down to the mat, so we're just kind of refiring up our core since we've stretched out a lot of stuff. So arms go out long. We're just going to slowly lower ourselves down. Slowly, slowly, slowly. And relax. Okay, so now that we're down here, we're just gonna pick up the legs at a nice 90-degree angle. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna check our internal rotation. So this is something that squash players are typically really bad at. So with this posture, you're just gonna keep your knees kind of fist width apart, and you're just gonna see how far your feet flail out. Keeping the knees squeezed together, minimal space between. So mine's really limited. This is an issue that I always have. So I'm gonna lower back down. I'm gonna extend my left one out, bringing my right knee up. Just gonna give it a little bit of support. I'm just gonna kind of circle the foot out past the kind of hip line, but keeping my knee over the hip. So just kind of finding that internal rotation range, just kind of working through it. So I have a lot of stickiness on my right side. So just kind of testing that range, testing the musculature, just making a small circle. And lower back down. Okay, picking up left, keeping the knee over top of my hip, but the left foot goes out wide, kind of a circular motion. So this is a lot of joint play. So if this is not for you and it feels really irritating, then just kind of wait out. Skip this one. Okay, last time. All right, and relax. Okay, we're gonna do some lateral twisting. So I'm gonna drop down my legs to the left side, coming to extend out right hand, right arm. Slowly, I'm just going to extend my heel out straight as far as I can go. It should feel it all the way down this IT band, down the side body, into the pec. Just going to try and settle out here. If this is too much, just come to dropping the knees stacked to one side. Nice deep breaths. Again, this I find for A-level men who don't have great articulation from their back to their hips. They're really quick turners, but they don't have really good articulation from the back to the hips. They get a lot of low back injuries. This stretch is really good. And just releasing that. Again, squeezing into your core to protect your back. We're going to go to the other side. So left arm goes out long. Knees come up stacked, and then extending out to that right side. So you can kind of play around with that arm as well too. Kind of flailing the fingertips, flipping them over, pushing them away from yourselves. Finding that really good pec stretch. So, and then just checking in with the other areas, making sure that your heel is drawing away from your body. And release. Good. So after that, we're just going to take a second to square up the hips. So how we do this is just basically hands out beside us. We're going to come to a bridge if you've ever done that in your workout. So heels pushing into the mat. You're just going to lift your hips off the mat, staying nice and flat. If you need to put your hands on top of your hips to just kind of make sure they're nice and even. We're looking to even out the hips right now because we did a lot of twisting and side bending. So just kind of settling here, being really switched on the legs, staying strong in the core, nice and flat upper body. And then very slowly from here, you're just going to lower each part of your spine back down, starting from the shoulder blades down to the mid back. Just really roll that out. Feels really good. And settle back down. And just kind of give yourself a little bit of a rock just to kind of reset everything. See how you're feeling. And slowly lift up. Cross-legged seated. Just see how everything feels. So this is something that you can work on. A lot of these postures are what I give out to squash players that are working on a lot of issues. So I just kind of put them into one formal video for everybody just to really hopefully avoid injury. So if you can even, you know, do something like this kind of stretching mobility work, and then Chris Hannaberry, our pro, has put out so many good workouts that work on the variances from left to right in squash bodies to kind of create a lot more balance with your musculature. I mean, even doing this and one of those videos once a week will change so much on court. So, but be really kind to your body. Just listen to your body. Go slow with this. This is a lot of different movement. So just take your time with it, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. For chronic injuries on the squash court. Blah, 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 blah.